I see the music industry as a magic roundabout that has the power to take artists pretty much anywhere they want to go. But how do you connect, communicate, and collaborate in the best way with the best people to help you reach your dream destination? I'm hoping these three might have some idea. Would you like to introduce yourself? Start with you, Alex.
G'day. My name's Alex Borwick. I'm from New Zealand. I've been a musician my whole life. I've toured the world with loads of bands, and these days I work as a music producer and recording and mix engineer. I'm the head engineer at Grass Lodge Recording Studios in Westmeath, and I work freelance on a lot of other places around the country as well.
My name is Roisín Dwyer. I work in PR in the National Concert Hall. I've been there for 5 years. Before that, I was commissioning editor in Hot Press for 16 years. I've also done various freelance PR projects and run some gigs. And when I was in Hot Press, I was a journalist as well as a commissioning editor. So I've had my finger in a lot of pies over the years.
My name is Harry Martin, and I've worked in the independent music sector for just over 30 years, primarily at a label called Domino Records. So it's thinking Arctic Monkeys, Wet Leg, Franz Ferdinand, and Domino Publishing. Lovely to be able to say we publish Fontaine's DC. Currently, I'm on the board of New Music Dublin and at the OEN Music Centre in Belfast. I'm proud to say that I've recently become a mentor for Minding Creative Minds.
Thank you. Okay, start with a simple bit. What is the best way for an artist or their management to approach you, and what should they look for in you to know that you're a good fit for them? Do you want to start with that, Harry?
Me?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be a little bit, not controversial, but I would say, remember that you are a 15-year-old artist or budding artists, and that's what you are. Focus on writing songs, rehearsing, practicing, getting gigs, getting better. I mean, just don't get in touch with us. We will hear. If you're good, we will hear. There's a whole network of people. I think I heard Suzanne talk about networks. The tentacles are everywhere. The promoter will tell a label, or a journalist might tell a label, A&R person. It gets there. I would say, just be practice. Think about writing the best song you can write, and that's what's going to serve your career better than anything.
Thank you. Alex?
Instagram. Instagram, or I have a website. My contact details in there. If you really want to get in touch with me, you can. I'm slow at replying, but I will reply. I don't not reply to emails.
Roisín, probably this more with your kind of media head on, isn't it? Your journalist hat.
Well, I will say one thing, that Ireland and Dublin are very small. Hi, Miguel. Sorry, on that note. And, if you're a musician and you're out there going to gigs, it's very easy to, just strike up conversations with people. Like people working in sound, people working in the venue. If you see a journalist, go over and chat to them, maybe let them know you're in a band, ask can you get their contact details. Most people are very happy to help because Ireland is small and being nice goes a long way. It works both ways. But when I was working in the media, we would get a lot of email contact from musicians. So maybe it might help if I sort of talk through just briefly sort of what worked and what doesn't work. Firstly, there's a thing called the Hot Press Yearbook, which is actually a really good directory and will sort of give you lots of contacts in the industry, and there's a media section in that. And I found as a journalist, if a musician is contacting me, say about a release or about them wanting me to cover a gig, really helpful to have just your subject line really clear, your musician's name, releases, title of song, on date. And then in the first couple of lines, keep it nice and short. Just say, hi there, we're in a band called X. We've been going for 2 years. We're releasing our 3rd single in March. Would really love if you could review it. Helpful things to always include in an email: a little short biography about yourself, a high-res JPEG, and maybe like a link to the audio. So if you're looking for a journalist to review your material, they have everything there they need to write a little single review and put a portrait of your band in. If you're looking for them to review the gig or highlight your upcoming gig, include a link to where the tickets are available. If they do get back to you and they're happy to go along to review your show, make sure they're on the guest list, give them the information that they need. And if you do go and, you know, if it continues on and you get to an interview stage, I would always recommend in interviews, you know, no one-word answers. You know, and this is, sorry, I've started and I probably shouldn't have had that second coffee because I'm not stopping.
Don't worry.
Maybe you're getting on to the collaborating. Like if you're doing an interview with a journalist, you are collaborating on an article or a radio show, or so you're working towards a common goal of making this good for the listener. So your answers should be, you know, interesting, not one word, you know, and you know, you're looking for it to be an interesting piece of media for someone to read. And also, you know, if you're not enthusiastic about your record or your band, why should the reader be? And also, like, if you do get to the stage, you do your interview, it's published, I would always like retweet it on your media channel, your own social media channel, and thank the journalist. Being nice goes a long way. I can't even remember what the question was, sorry.
It's all right, I think you've answered them all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, on the collaboration front, Alex, I'm wondering, you're going into a studio, or rather a band is coming into a studio with you, how are they going to get the best out of you? How are they going to unlock, I suppose, the creativity that a producer has, rather than just have their music recorded and mixed in a good fashion?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, yeah, like Roisín, you kind of like hit the nail on the head there. Like, it's definitely a collaborative game these days. I mean, I would love to have experienced what it was like doing what I do 40 or 50 years ago when everything was on tape. Because I get the sense it was much more divided then, but now it's such a collaborative process. It's not like me and you, it's kind of more about us working together. And I think I spend a lot of time in pre-production before we even think about booking a studio or booking time, of getting a sense of whether we kind of are on the same page musically and creatively. And I think kind of creating that environment where we're going to be creative and be inspired, and it's not, it is a service, but I don't want it to feel like a service. I don't want it to feel like work. It's like we're working on something together. So I think that's a really big part of it. And being open-minded, like, you know, I think my philosophy in the studio, like, there's no such thing as like a silly question, like, we'll try any idea. Even if in my head I think, that's a ridiculous idea. We'll try it we'll spend 5 minutes on it, and then we'll all know in the room whether it works or not. And I always surprise myself, some of the best ideas, that, someone might suggest something, and some of the most ridiculous ideas end up being fantastic. And it's very much, it's not about the individuals. It shouldn't be, hopefully, too much of an egotistical process where we are working on somebody's music and it's what's going to make that music the strongest that it can be, rather than like anybody, any kind of idea of one-upmanship or anybody forcing their idea through. It's what's going to serve the song the best on an emotional level, what's going to make the song feel the best and feel good when you listen to it. Yeah, and I think just having the crack in the studios, like it shouldn't feel like work. If I can make a fun, enjoyable environment where we're, telling jokes and breaking bread together and communing together, I think that goes a really long way. And being creative, kind of taking out, so we're not too focused on like, oh, this task is the thing we have to do, but more about enjoying this environment that we're in, I think is really important.
Do you need to be invited specifically by an artist? Do they need to empower you to be really creative with a song? Or is that something that you will just kind of do anyway?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd definitely I'd impose it on them whether they like it or not. But then it's always a sense, in that the first steps of like getting to know each other. It's almost like the first date of like trying to get to know each other and figuring out, okay, how much can we push this music? How open and reciprocal are you going to be with your music? And in terms of the development of it. Yeah, and look, I'm pretty frank, call a spade, as it's in Australia. Like, I'm going to be very upfront at the start and say, look, how open can we be with this? How much space do we have to stretch this music and to push it, I suppose? So we kind of like set those parameters out pretty early on, I think.
So it's a conversation between you and them, really, that sort of sets the parameters.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. Yeah, and at the end of the day, the bottom line is what's going to serve the music the best, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Harry?
Dan.
Artists,
Yeah.
labels, collaboration. I mean, I think, is that something that artists really look at? I think maybe possibly not, that they don't really see it as a collaboration so much as labels doing their job and them doing their job. So at what point can there be a collaboration that makes the relationship better?
I think the relationship works particularly well. I suppose you hear this word, maybe it's a good word, we think of minding creative minds and mental health. Just being your authentic self, that's a phrase I hear a lot, and just being who you are. You're unique. I think as a label, we're not there to impose anything on an artist, to tell them what to be. It's what makes that artist unique is themselves. And so we'd like to think we're there maybe to amplify or help them with that message. We're not going to tell them how to write a song. We're going to let Alex here work in the studio with them and hone that craft. We're just going to take these recordings and work with them, find a way that they're comfortable working with it. So some artists are great on social media, they're just great communicators. Some aren't. That doesn't make them a bad artist, so don't put yourself under pressure that way. We'll work around an artist to just be their authentic self and hopefully have a successful career.
So how important is it for them to really understand what they're about and to have thought about what they're about and the uniqueness of themselves and even potentially their audience? Is that their job?
I think their job fundamentally is back to where I started. It's to write that great song, and it's write, rehearse, record, play. Just get great at that. That will do so much work for an artist. If you're taking a song that's kind of half finished, it's not bad, I think the hook and that might be fine. It's a lot of work to get that song away. If you just make your best work, I think it just happens. Is that bullshit? Is that kind of
great? It's the magic roundabout, isn't it?
It's the magic roundabout.
Yeah. Roisin, for an artist to understand themselves, understand their audience, how does that help you?
Yeah, it does help me, and I'll speak with a PR hat on.
With the concert hall, presumably.
Okay, from the moment your concert is booked in, I am collaborating with the artist on creating a successful promotional campaign to get the word about your concert out to as many people as possible. And it is very important to understand the artist. So I know, okay, that artist would sit well on, are they a Marty in the Morning person? Are they an arena person? To sort of understand where I can best pitch this artist to get as much coverage as possible. It is a collaborative process. So when you are working with the PR in a venue, the sharing of information is very important. From the outset, make sure you get your biography, your photo in. You're collaborating, you should be in tune with the venue on your promotional campaign. When is your gig going to be announced? Because the venue will likely have a lot of other gigs that they are announcing. So know your announcement date, be in sync with the venue. The venue will probably be designing social media assets. You should be sharing them on your social media channels. And then be contactable. And actually, I should have said that it's the same if you're dealing with journalists, having your email and mobile phone number, because so much in media, I could be working on a concert, say Dan is performing on the main stage. I pitch him to, the Tastemaker Q&A in the Sunday Business Post. They don't reply. I pitch him again. They get back to me and say, thanks, we're full for the next few issues. But I could get a phone call, actually, this has fallen through, is that person still available? It's so important that I have a mobile and can ring Dan immediately and you're making yourself available. So it's all part of the collaboration and working together.
Alex, the identity of the artist, is that something that they come to you with that is always firm, fixed, and they understand what they're about, what their music is about? Or is that something that the work that you do with them helps them in some ways formulate and move their identity forward? How important is it for you that they understand themselves when they come in to work with you?
Yeah, totally. It's a great question. I think it's kind of all of the answer is all of those. Definitely, it depends where somebody's at, where you're at in your career. If it's somebody's first album, there's a couple of artists I've been working with this year, and it's their first recordings, their first albums, and they've very much been in the developmental stage of their music, and their music has changed a lot through the creation of these albums. So sometimes that happens, and obviously, again, going back to what I was saying before, we have the conversation at the start about, okay, this is what we're set up to do, and we know that. And then sometimes people have a very clear idea of like, okay, we're making a Tame Impala record or whatever. And it's much more of a firm brief then. I think it's really important, maybe slightly related to that, Dan, is why are you making music? And again, I think going back kind of what Harry was saying, is that make music that you're going to love and that's going to get you out of bed and that's going to get you bopping away, I think is more, for me personally, is much more important than, is this music, right for radio or like that Spotify playlist or whatever. I mean, sure, you can make music for that too, of course. That's not my area of expertise. But I think if you're making music that you're loving and that buzzes you, then you're going to get buzzed up. I think it'll come across in the authenticity, and like people can just taste and smell if someone's music is authentic and genuine. You can just sense it, and it's not a technical thing. You can feel it, and I think that's going to be the make or break really for me.
Okay, thank you. This probably, you see artists, the three of you, see artists in very different situations and under different pressures. How would you advise artists from the point of view of managing, minimizing stress and anxiety and protecting themselves from burnout, for instance? Any tips on that? Harry, from a label point of view.
From a label point of view, even just from a creative point of view, I'd say don't put yourself under time pressure. Be patient in some ways. If you think, I've got to get this song done in the next month, it has to be written for this or that, I think you're putting yourself under undue pressure, and it just may not be a great song. So I think just be patient, take your time. You're trying to build a career that'll last a lifetime, not just the next 6 months, and you can build a very successful career, and it doesn't have to happen in your first year or your second year. It can take a bit of time, so I just say be patient, and again, write that song.
So how does that work with legendary record label deadlines? If it's not ready, you just put it back.
Record labels, so many records to release. There's no shortage of records. So sometimes they're able to, well, actually encourage the artists. Let's just take a bit of time here and set this up properly. You've made a good piece of work here, or maybe you need to go and write a few more songs. I'd say the independent sector anyway, they don't have to look at their quarterly figures or report to shareholders. It's like, yeah, we want to put the best records. It's a record label's legacy as well to put out the very best. So if you need a bit more time, I think you'll see the label say, yeah, take the time.
And then maybe it's important for the artist to actually say, no, I'm not ready. I can't do this now.
Yeah.
Give me another 6 months.
Yeah, and if they need to just say, again, it's back to your mental health again, don't put yourself under that undue pressure.
Okay, and that would be a happy and sort of valuable part of the conversation.
I think it would.
Okay. Roisin, artists, live touring, live shows.
With performing, like I suppose the artists at the NCH that we're working with, you're working towards your performance, and I think coming up to the day of the performance and building up, it's very important to be kind to yourself. I suppose that translates through every facet of life. And not doing anything too stressful in the run up to the gig. From the people who work in the stage, from their perspective, they would always say, your rehearsal should really be a run through. So for yourself, have your songs note perfect, and as well coming into the show, be prepared, in terms of your frame of mind. because I know our crew have seen, they would say, if you're going in and you're over-rehearsing, it does take a spark out of the performance, like it does reflect in the performance. So I think mental preparation is hugely important. And like Harry said, and he said, not putting pressure on yourself. And even from the point as well of the crew and the people who are operating in the venue, like if you're not prepared, you're sort of putting extra pressure on them, which is bad for their mental health, I suppose, if you're talking about everyone. But it also would leave a bad impression with that venue if you're coming in, you're not prepared, you're not sticking to your allocated time. So I think for everyone's mental health, preparation and professionalism is probably key.
Okay, Alex, I can imagine there must be some different pressures from the point of view of artists coming into you outside of the normal stresses and anxieties, because obviously studios get paid by the day. So realistically, they're trying to finish that recording within a budget, which presumably puts additional stress on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, like without getting too far into the finances, I think like flat project fees kind of help alleviate that pressure and stress, because I know what it's like being in bands and being a musician and understand the pressure of that. So I find there's benefits for like getting an entire project budget and saying, okay, we are going to make it work within this budget. Alleviates that pressure a lot. I think just learning to say no to things. And like what you were saying, Harry, like I've worked on albums where people have said, okay, we want to make this album, we want to have it done by the 1st of July. And in my head, I'm like, well, that's just not going to happen. And it's never an enjoyable process when you don't have enough time to finish an album. It's just like, it'll take as long as it'll take, and it'll be better for it as well. If you spend a bit more time on it, if it means that the album's going to be better, then that's time really well spent.
Do you find that sometimes or often that they're coming in and they're not really prepared to make it, and that causes an extra stress for all of you concerned?
Do you mean as in if they're not prepared to take longer on it?
Well, if they're not prepared to record the record, if they haven't got the songs to a place where they're ready to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if that's the case, I guess that's subjective. But if I think, these songs aren't ready, then I'll say, hey, come back to me in 6 months. Definitely. Yeah, because you can't... I can't stress enough, so sometimes if you're making an album, someone will say, oh, I've got 10 songs, this is the album. Whereas in actual fact, it's probably much more beneficial to have 20 songs and start working on 20 songs, and then you whittle down, the best of those 20 songs, or even more, 50 songs, even better, and really like get the creme de la creme of the songs that you have, the strongest ones, rather than like, oh, this is all we have. It gives you options.
Yeah, good. Okay, we touched upon a few things. I'm sure there are loads of areas that, well, hopefully there are loads of areas that you would like to hear something from the panel about. If we throw it open to questions. Have you got a mic there, Emma?
We do.
Lovely. Any questions? There's one over there behind you.
Testing.
Where do you see AI fitting in with everything moving forward?
Ooh, dirty words. Who wants to take that one?
I think it's here, and that's the reality of it. So I'm thinking about it a little bit, and from I think probably as a writer or as a recording artist, for generations, for decades, we've all been doing this in our heads anyway. We've heard something and it's lodged in there, and something from the 60s might lodge in there, something you heard the other day, lodged, you might have gone to gig last Tuesday and something's popped in. So I guess the brain is doing that. We're all, there's a line sort of, I'm going to quote Bono. Am I allowed to quote Bono?
Quietly, yeah.
Every artist is a cannibal, every poet is a thief, and maybe artificial intelligence is going to do that, but I suppose it's important that the original artists are recognised, and kind of would welcome the AI Act, the EU AI Act of March, I think it was signed off. It's here, we've got to use it. We're not going to be able to cancel it. That's my thoughts.
Well, presumably there's with Double Six, the Domino publishing company, you've got to be super careful about that end of things anyway, haven't you? I mean, you're hyper aware of ownership and therefore the AI conversation.
Yeah, even before AI, you were kind of wary of it too. Someone just think, oh, I've just written this wonderful top line. And oh, actually, Stevie Wonder wrote it 40 years ago. So you've got to be wary of that.
Good point. Any more questions? One at the back.
Hi. I've been working with a band and they recently got announced on Ireland Music Week for 2024. And I'm just wondering how could I best work with them to even get more like festivals like Ireland Music Week, or try to get them on Output Belfast, or like in festivals in general. Like, do you have any tips for managers to help their artists get more opportunities?
Well, sorry, I've already mentioned the Hot Press yearbook, and it feels like I'm sponsored by Hot Press. Stuart's giving me the thumbs up. In the Hot Press yearbook is actually such a useful resource, and there is a festival section with contacts in it. So that.
New one on its way.
Yeah, new one on its way, and most festival sites will have their contact details on it, so that's a good start.
And there's also probably a great delegates list on the Ireland Music Week website, so you can see who's coming and maybe pick a few targets and hunt them down while they're here. And
send them some links. Just make sure they're aware of your band, and I'm sure there'll be a fit there somewhere.
What's the band? Something. Child of Prague. Child of Prague, everybody, Ireland Music Week.
Yeah.
How you doing? Just, I suppose, to Roisín maybe, and the others as well, if they want to pitch in. Just as an independent artist, I suppose I released a debut EP in kind of June, and did quite well at a couple of singles before that in terms of local radio and also local press. How do you get to the next level as an independent artist? Like, I would have been pitching into RT as well, and kind of trying to get reviews. Very hard for me to get reviews, say, from, I won't mention any names.
I think just keep emailing. Like
Thanks.
The journalist will be aware of your email, and like if you have emailed them a couple of times, so many times I have been emailed by bands, and I'm like, okay, I'm aware of them, and it's just maybe the opportunity hasn't arisen, a review slot hasn't come up. But if you've put yourself on their radar, when an opportunity does come up, they'll say, hold on a minute. And if you have your contact details in that email, it's just putting yourself out there. And as I said again, like, Ireland is so small, going to events like this, networking, it's just building your contacts and building your contacts. And it can take a while, but you will, you do get there, yeah.
You always have to have a new release then for a new opportunity.
Well, normally it would need to be sort of something, or even something newsworthy. Think from the perspective of that journalist is looking for something that will catch a reader's eye, something fresh. So even if it's not a new release, it's something new you've done, or you're working in a new studio, or you've done a duet with someone. Think with a newsy perspective and something that's fresh and new.
I think we've got time for one more question.
Thank you. Great panel so far. I just wanted to ask, the psychology of it all feels like it plays a big role in the burnout that you talked about. And I wondered, are there things that you've noticed are commonly true of the people who seem to withstand the ups and downs better than others? What have you noticed are good things people put in place, or that they remember along the way, that help them to stave off burnout?
I'm going to say probably be the authentic voice again. Just be yourself. That's the real you. Don't put yourself under pressure to be something or somebody else.
I think people who are aware of the basics of looking after yourself and looking after your mental health, and that's so important, especially in the modern world when we're under a deluge of social media and news and fake news, and just taking time for yourself and minding yourself, that's so important, because I know it's a trite cliche, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anyone else, but it is so important. That's why minding creative minds is so important. Yeah.
I think as a codicil to Harry's point, that maybe being yourself is a lot less stressful and anxiety-inducing than trying to be something that you're not and trying to keep up the pretense of being that thing that you're not. So if you can be the real you, then it's going to be more efficient energy-wise and less strain on your head. I think that's about it. We have to finish. Thank you very much for your time and your questions.